Oh, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Big Four podcast. We got a jam-packed show for you today. We'll get right into things. We'll start with last Thursday's game. Ohio State gets down early, down at halftime against Minnesota. They come back, get a nice win in the end. What are your reactions on how Ohio State played and perhaps how this affects Minnesota going forward?
Listen, a win's a win. It ended up being a good win. The second half was a lot better than the first half. CJ Stroud looked better in the second half than he did in the first half. First half, he really struggled. And we're missing pretty much our entire starting defensive backs. So I think it ended up being a good win. This Minnesota team's tough. I mean, it's a tough loss for them losing their running back there. He's clearly their best player and was going to carry them this year, but we'll see if they can overcome it. But it ended up being a good win for Ohio State. A lot better than I think people are saying it is, because I think Minnesota's a really good team. But there's still a lot of ways to improve, and we'll see.
I think a lot of people are overreacting to how Stroud played in the first half. A much better second half. And we've seen this before. Ohio State quarterbacks, they seem to get better and better as the year goes on. I'm not saying he's Dwayne Haskins or Justin Fields or anything like that.
Well, that's what you think, because you see him at the beginning of the year, and then you see him in the last week of the year when they dropped 70 points on Michigan.
Yeah, right. I know firsthand. So I think Ohio State will be fine on that front. They did give up 31 points to the University of Minnesota, however, a team that I'm not very high on. I know that Ibrahim got 30 carries before he got hurt. But the fact of the matter is Tanner Morgan is playing quarterback for Minnesota, and he is washed up and frankly sucks now. And you give up 31 points. I'm a little bit concerned about Ohio State's
Chris,
defense.
he's your perfect quarterback. He's a game manager.
But I'm convinced they'll be good enough to go 12-0 in the Big Ten and make the playoff.
Well, in terms of passer rating, Tanner Morgan had the third greatest season in Big Ten history a couple years ago. So
yeah, exactly. A couple years ago, he washed up.
No, he just doesn't have the receivers he used to have. They don't have Rashad Bateman, Tyler Johnson. They don't have those guys anymore, and they're gonna struggle without Ibrahim, whatever his name is. And Ohio State was not impressed early, especially with Stroud, but he played much better in the second half, and that was a solid win. That was one of those games where, you know, the fact that you won the game, you're happy with that, especially on the road, tough environment. A lot of your guys haven't played in environments like that just because of course, Olave and those guys have, but I mean, they haven't played in a real road environment since 2019. So that was a good win. PJ Fleck, I thought he coached a very good game. Minnesota, I think they'll be fine. I think the injury certainly hurts what they can do, but they're still a solid bowl team, I think. We'll see how they bounce back against a good team that they're playing this week. Ball State, is that who they're playing? They're a good team, so that'll be an interesting game. Okay, so let's move on to Friday night. Michigan State defeats Northwestern on the road, 38-21. Reactions from this game?
I mean, it's a good win for Michigan State. I mean, they dominated the trenches the entire game. They really kind of dominated the entire game from what I saw. I mean, what a performance by Kenneth Walker. I mean, hopefully he's not peaking too early, Mike. But I mean, if you're Michigan State, you couldn't ask for a better start to the season. It was at Northwestern, which really doesn't mean a lot, but you still have to travel on the road and deal with that stuff. And I mean, if you're Mel Tucker, you couldn't be any more happy with the way that first game went.
Yeah, I thought Northwestern would be a little bit better than they were. They were really bad in this game. I don't know if they just played really bad or if they are really bad, but
they
also always start the season slow, it seems like.
Maybe, but this was a horrendous performance here. And Michigan State played well, but it's not like they played like the greatest team of all time. Northwestern didn't play well at all. And Michigan State took care of their business against a team they're more talented in. A lot of people are overreacting to Kenneth Walker. And he was running through wide open holes all night. So, I mean, I hope he could run for
That's
whatever
funny
he
because
did.
he just wasn't at all.
He was. I mean, I
He hadn't
sat
won
there
on the first play of the game. That was the only
we
real open
sat
play.
there and watched the whole game, and I watched him run through wide open holes the entire game. I thought Thorne did a good job managing the game. That's all he needs to do for them to be a decent team. And they should be ranked in the top 25 after this week. They were ranked in my rankings.
Okay, well, when Northwestern loses to Indiana State this week, you probably won't be thinking that.
One thing about Northwestern, Hunter Johnson, what a performance! This guy's for real. I was telling you guys last week, Hunter Johnson is
He
great.
He threw the ball 60 times. I hope he'd have 250 yards passing.
Didn't turn the ball over. Did not turn the ball over. That's all that matters. Hunter Johnson played great.
Especially when in the second half when we're playing prevent defense. We'll give you 10 minutes to go drive down the field, dink and dunk your way down the field for a touchdown. And that's exactly what he did. I mean, listen, I said we had to win this game. I said it last week. Northwestern's not good. I told you coming into this week they weren't good, and they aren't good. They proved it on the football field. We proved that we can beat a bad Big Ten team. That's what we proved. I said we have to get to 6-6 this year. If we don't, then Mel Tucker will be on the hot seat. You got to get to 6-6. I think this team can go. Look at their schedule. We avoid Wisconsin. We avoid Iowa. We avoid Minnesota. We get 3 of the 4 worst teams in the Big Ten West. We play Purdue, Nebraska, and Northwestern. We had already beaten Northwestern. We should beat the other 2. This team should go 8-4. All right, there's no sugarcoating it. This is an easy Big Ten schedule. Of course, Miami in the non-conference. It's not going to be a cakewalk, that's for sure. But listen, this team should go 8-4. All right, they got a decent offensive line. I think they proved that. Quarterback is good. He proved it last year. He proved it in the one game so far this year. He's a good quarterback. He doesn't make a ton of mistakes. You didn't have to push the ball down the field. We got a good receiving core. Defense is a work in progress. We'll see if we can shore up that a little bit. But listen, it was a win they had to have, and this team should be 8-4. There's no. I said last week we have to be 6-6. We have to be 8-4 this year. There's no excuses whatsoever. And then once we win this week, I'll be saying we better be 10-2 after we beat a good Youngstown State.
A really good team, yeah.
Yeah, they went 1-6 in the spring season last year.
Yeah, but they got the best AD in the country, Jim Tressel.
They do. Fortunately, Bo Pelini's not their coach anymore. That hurts. All right, let's move on. Michigan takes care of business against Western Michigan. I know a lot of people were taking Western Michigan in this game, so I'd say it's an upset. Is it not?
Luke, you gonna talk?
I was waiting for you to reply whether it was an upset or not. So it's an interesting question. I don't know. If I knew, I would have waited. I wouldn't have waited.
They
for
were
your answer.
17. They were 17-point favorites, but if you look at the fan page, whatever that thing that they do, a bunch of fan pages predict games. Like 4 or 5 took Western. So,
I mean, it's a good win. At the beginning of the year, you just try to get reps in and look all right, and not get a big upset. I mean, Michigan knows a lot about big upsets earlier in the year, but they took care of business, beat Western Michigan, and they're on to next week.
Yeah, I mean, I thought we played pretty well. We were going to be able to move the ball one way or another because Western Michigan's defense is really bad. And, Cade McNamara looked good. I thought McCarthy looked good, too, when he came in. And the running backs were really good. The offensive line was good. And I was expecting that. But the defense was impressive, I think. I think last year's team probably gives up 35 points to Western Michigan in this game. So an impressive showing from the defense, holding their own, holding Western to 14 points. Hopefully that translates to this week against a team who can't score. So we shouldn't be letting up 14 points to the team this week. I don't really care, though, at this point. Ronnie Bell getting hurt is a travesty. It completely brings down the ceiling of this team. Our best offensive player Why is he out there returning punts up 20 points against Western Michigan? That is what I want to know. I want answers on that.
I want to know how you can't replace him with their 25 five-star wide receivers in the waiting.
Listen, he is easily our best offensive player. You just can't just go replace a guy like that. He was great in this game before he got hurt. And
I thought McCarthy was your best offensive player because he's a Heisman contender. I've been watching that video, and my God, against the MAC team at home, what a throw!
It was a great throw. It was a great throw. You're
It
gonna
was
see that.
that would have been picked off against any Big Ten team.
Next
But
year,
I
Mike,
mean, whatever.
JJ McCarthy next year will be in contention for the Heisman. So
Just
tough loss of Ronnie Bell.
I can't believe he's not on the Heisman watch list after 1 year.
Yeah, him
after that
and
throw.
Cade probably should be on there.
And Alan Bowman.
Yeah. Okay, good win for Michigan, but losing Bell is tragic.
Well, I mean, listen, the Michigan team last year, kind of similar starts. Okay, they blast the team that has no business being on the field with them. And listen, they've been great front runners for as long as Harbaugh's been there. Michigan's been a great front running team. When things go great, they go great. Michigan blows teams out. That's what they've always done under Harbaugh. Once one lick of adversity comes, that is when it all falls down. And it was an impressive performance. It wasn't anything to write home about, but it was an impressive performance. Western can move the ball. I thought they played scared at the end, or they played scared for most of the game. So not a good showing from Western at all. And their defense sucks. That's not new. Western's defense has sucked for years. But I mean, here's one thing Michigan can claim. I mean, they can claim a win over the Washington football team because they're basically the same logo, so basically the same team. Now, is the Washington football team better than Ohio State? That's the question. Okay. Two more big Big Ten games. First, we go to Madison. Penn State goes on the road and beats Wisconsin. Reactions from this game?
Well, I thought it was going to be a close game for the most part. I was just shocked when I was watching this pregame stuff, and everyone thought Wisconsin was just going to blow the doors off of them. I mean, the absolute disrespect people were giving Penn State. I think they're forgetting that this team won a Rose Bowl went to the Rose Bowl a couple of years ago. I mean, it's a good program. Wisconsin's a good program.
They also started 0-5 last year.
Yeah, but that was a COVID year. You can't take anything out of it.
That's right.
Except for Michigan sucking. You can take that. You got to cherry pick what you take out of it. All right. But I just thought it was a good game. I mean, every time I watched a little bit of it, and then obviously it's a classic Big Ten game being 16-10. But I mean, that's what we love. That's what we like to watch. It was kind of sloppy, but it was kind of good at the same time, and that's what makes Big Ten football great.
Yeah. Good win for Penn State. Really, they had no business. I thought Wisconsin was going to win. But with the amount of mistakes that Wisconsin made.
I did too, but everyone thought Wisconsin was like 10 times better than them, is what it seemed like.
I still think they're better. I still think Wisconsin's better than Penn State. Wisconsin played so bad in this game. And it just awful. They could not have played any worse. Their quarterback sucks. Mertz sucks. He's awful. And Sean Clifford, he sucks too. But look at this. No picks. Graham Mertz, 2 picks. If that's flipped, Wisconsin wins easily. You can't turn the ball over. Wisconsin was doing it all day. A complete and utter disgrace of a performance from Wisconsin. Eliminates them from their aspirations of making the playoff. They had to go 12-0 and see Ohio State.
No, they don't. If they go 11-1 and beat Ohio State in the championship game, they're in.
Not good enough. Well, you have to remember everybody else is going 12-0.
Okay, Mike.
Yeah. So a disgraceful performance from Wisconsin. An entertaining game, but I am very angry if I'm a Wisconsin fan.
This is the problem with Trestle Ball. The problem with Trestle Ball is just by its nature, you give a team that you're way better than a chance to win. And that's exactly what happened here. Wisconsin was dominating the football game, and a couple things happened. Yes, they turned the ball over, which obviously doesn't help, but they also played scared. They coached scared on offense. They just wouldn't throw the ball. And sure, maybe Graham Mertz just sucks. Maybe they're afraid to throw the football. But you got to be kidding me. You can't run the ball 70 times in a game like that. And on the other side, they were giving up big plays. Penn State had 11 first downs the entire game. 11. The only reason why they scored their points was big plays. I mean, I don't know how you give up big plays like that against a team that you can stop easy. They can't. Penn State couldn't run the ball. And defensively, they played well. I got to give Penn State credit there. They hung in there. That was a game that James Franklin he couldn't win. But this was one of those days where he's now 1-12 instead of 0-12 or 0-13 against top 15 teams on the road. So that was an impressive win, a very good win. You're not gonna apologize for a win like that. But if I'm Wisconsin, I'm pissed because this has happened way too many times with them. This looked like the Northwestern game last year, a game where they were the better team, but the only reason why they lost is because they coached scared and they turned the ball over. You can't do that. Okay, the way they play, they can't turn the ball over, and they're not going to be able to win. They can't turn the ball over because they don't have the big playability of Ohio State. So they have to just dink and dunk their way, run the football 5, 6, 7 yards. They have to be perfect to score points. And that's the problem with the way that they play in today's game. They got to take more deep shots. They got the receivers. Danny Davis is there for his 30th year. Kendrick Pryor, 31st year. You got to be able to move the ball vertically down the field, or else Wisconsin's they're gonna keep doing this. They're gonna keep losing these games every year. Games like this.
I think you can look at how Jack Cohn played for Notre Dame. Completely tore it up off Notre Dame, and he was awful at Wisconsin. And you can probably attribute a lot of that to the way they.
He wasn't awful at Wisconsin.
He was awful.
He wasn't awful. They just never let him throw. That's the problem. They never let him throw.
You can attribute that to the way Wisconsin plays. His play at Wisconsin. Now he's tearing it up at Notre Dame. He's tearing it up for a better team now.
Okay.
It was one game. It was one game.
Yeah.
Let's see him do it over a 12-game season here.
Big Ten scoreboard. We had, there's one more game we have to go over. Indiana on the road at Iowa. They get basically punked. Michael Penix looked horrible. Reactions from this game.
Well, listen. Last year, Indiana just had everything that could go right for Indiana went right last year. Just absolutely everything. Even look at when they played Ohio State, they almost caught Ohio State with the COVID. I mean, just everything that could go right for Indiana last year went right. And this year, they're just going to come back to the mean here. They're going to revert back to the mean. I think it's going to be a tough year for Indiana. I know Chris has been saying it, and I'm going to have to agree with him. Indiana's in for a tough year. And because last year they had an easy schedule, caught people at the right time, got a break there at the end against Penn State. And then and this year their schedule's not so easy. Penix, he played great last year. He coming off an injury, we'll see, but I just don't see them having a magical year like they did last year. And then Iowa's also very good. I don't think Iowa's as good as everyone's trying to make them out to be, because I think Indiana's not as good as everybody thinks. But Iowa's a very good, solid team, probably one of the better teams they've had in previous years.
Yeah, I agree. Iowa's a good team. They are a top 15 team for sure. But Indiana, we were all talking about it last week. The law of averages is going to hit Indiana this year. They're going to be a middling team. And they just got destroyed by a better team. Iowa has way more talent. You got your quarterback coming off a severe injury. So, the writing was on the wall for this game. But it was a lot worse than I think a lot of us thought it would be.
I agree with the whole law of averages argument, because look at the teams Indiana played last year and the timing of when they played them. Penn State, first game of the year. Penn State has like 200 more yards, but they beat Penn State because of turnovers and because of a questionable call at the end of the game. They catch Michigan coming off terrible loss to Michigan State, and Michigan just ended up not being good at all last year. That was one of their biggest wins. They lose to Ohio State in a close game, and they go on the road.
Ohio State coming off COVID.
Yes, they go on the road to Wisconsin, a Wisconsin team that was another COVID just completely ruined their program last year, and they beat Wisconsin 17-10. And that was another one of their big wins that you could say, oh, is it that great of a win? But here's the one thing that's encouraging if you're Indiana. Obviously, the offense was terrible, but Iowa's always got a good defense. At least you could say, oh, our defense played well. Indiana's defense did play well. Their offense just gave up 2 pick sixes in the game. So you only give up 20 points on defense. You played fine defensively. I think the big swing game for them is going to be that Cincinnati game coming up in week 3. If they can win that game, that can turn around their season just from a mindset standpoint, because right now, obviously, it's not looking great, but it's always one game. And who knows, this could be one of those Iowa years where they're just an amazing team and they're going to win the West and go 11-1 or 12-0. I mean, who knows? You never know.
Add them to the list. 12-0. Add them to the list.
Yep.
Well, because Wisconsin's off it, so yeah.
Yeah.
You're right. Okay. Big Ten scoreboard. Some other games. We had Rutgers beating Temple 61-14. Despite only getting like 300 yards of offense, they scored 61 points. Thanks to DeJuan Mathis. Great performance there. Nebraska beats Fordham. Maryland, solid win over West Virginia. Purdue wins against Oregon State.
Mike, Temple could really use an all AAC quarterback right now.
Yeah, they could. Yeah, that's true. They could really use one. And UTSA defeats Illinois. So reactions from these games.
I just want to talk about the Rutgers game. I think it was a very impressive win. This is a game where 2 or 3 years ago, Rutgers is maybe scraping by, even losing to Temple. Now, I mean, they take care of business like a Big Ten team should do. I think Greg Schiano's done a great job with this program so far, and they're never going to be a great team in the Big Ten or even a good team, but they're going to get to a point where I think they're going to be one of these teams where you can't take them for granted, and if you have a down day, you'll lose.
Yeah, Rutgers, it's a good win. DeJuan Mathis is one of the best players in the country, so they did a good job defending against him. Remember last year, Mike was talking about how great he was for Georgia. Nebraska, that's a really good win. Fordham's a great team. Really capitalized on that game.
Well, they've got some good defensive backs.
Yeah, they do. They're really good on defense. Anyway,
I think Fordham's defensive backs might be having some off-the-field issues.
Okay. Maryland defeating West Virginia. This game, I'll tell you what, right here. Maryland is going 8-4. I told you guys that this is a good team. Talia Tagovailoa, incredible quarterback. And Mike, your guy at West Virginia, that coach, he sucks. I keep forgetting his name, but he sucks.
Neil Brown.
Yeah, Neil Brown.
The only reason why they won the game was because West Virginia gifted them the game. It was the equivalent of the Wisconsin game. West Virginia was the much better football team. They were gifted. Maryland was gifted the game off turnovers.
Maryland is the Indiana of this year.
No, they're not. Maryland's not a good foot. They're just not good. I'm sorry.
They're very good.
They have bad coaching. Okay, I don't know what they're doing.
That was a statement win for Michael Oxley. That was a statement win.
They do this every year. They're going to go 4-8 like they do every year. They will.
Purdue.
Maryland loves being the Big 10, Big 12 teams early in the year.
What an embarrassing loss for Oregon State to Purdue. Purdue sucks. And this is a really bad loss for Oregon State. And not a good loss for Illinois to UTSA. Although Arthur Sikowski, a special performance from Arthur Sikowski, but a tough go for the Illinois defense.
Yeah, I want to get back to that Rutgers game because I have a completely different opinion on it. This is if there's ever a bad 61-14 win, this is an example of it. They have 365 total yards of offense, which is not good. They averaged 4.3 yards per rush, but their number one rusher, or number one running back, averaged 2.5 yards per carry. Basically, it was Noah Vedral running the football. I don't think this Rutgers team is going to be able to move the football in the Big Ten. They're not. Their offense is, to put it,
They never can.
it's complete garbage. It's a complete garbage offense. And if they play any good teams, they're not going to be able to move the ball. The only way they're going
Of
to win.
course not. They don't have the players.
The only way they're going to win games in the Big Ten this year is if they get turnovers like they did last year. This team's not a bowl team. They're not a bowl team.
No one said they were a bowl team.
Oh, I've seen people say they're a bowl team. 100%.
The same people that were picking
Everybody-
Michigan to beat Michigan.
Everybody was picking Rutgers ahead of Michigan State this year. I'm
Okay.
saying we're way better than Rutgers. Maryland's way
I'd
better
hope
than
so.
Rutgers. Maryland might not be way better than Rutgers. That might be.
Maryland's 8-4.
Yeah, give me a break.
They
Give
will.
me a break, please. Other games. Yeah, Fordham, tough performance there. Nebraska, good win. Maryland's. Why don't we go to the stats again, shall we? Maryland has 500 yards of offense and loses, or 500 yards of offense. I mean, you got to be kidding me here. 320. Okay, fine. I mean, this is a performance where West Virginia, if they don't turn the ball over, they win. It's as simple as that.
Well, they did.
Maryland's
Maryland's defense.
cash in. Maryland couldn't cash in the red zone.
Mike,
Only put up 30 points.
let me tell you about this Maryland defense. They are a ball hawking defense.
Let me tell you about this Maryland coaching staff. Their head coach is 8-58 or something like that in his career. The dude doesn't know what he's doing. He lucked into a win. There's no other way to put it. That's what happened. Okay, that's just what happened. Other games, tough loss for Illinois, but UTSA is a good team. Tough loss for Oregon State on the road at Purdue. Game I thought they'd win for sure, but they got some problems. They really do. Both sides of the ball. It's going to be a tough year for Oregon State if the first game means anything. Okay, let's move on to the other really big game. I know there are some really big games also that we're not talking about. But there's just too many. Clemson, Georgia. Clemson loses 10-3. They didn't look good on offense, and Georgia didn't look good on offense either, but they got a pick six, and that was the difference in the game. So reaction from that game.
I don't think you take much out of it. I think they're both really good teams. I mean, Clemson's going to take a step back this year. I mean, they're probably still going to go 11-1 now because the ACC sucks, but I think they're going to take a step back performance-wise. I mean, how can you not? You had one of the best quarterbacks that we've seen in the past 20 years come through your program. But
Luke,
what?
they're not going 11-1 because they're going to lose to BC because BC is going 12-0.
Fair enough. That's a good point. But I mean, the thing I don't understand is everyone now is talking. I see on Twitter all the time people saying that Clemson sucks. Clemson sucks. Their offense sucks. They can't move the ball. But somehow Georgia's now is so-called great when they couldn't move the ball either. It came down to one play at the game. It was a great game. I mean, good defensive football. And both of these teams are two of the best 5 teams in the country. I think Clemson's going to take a step back, and they might miss out on the playoff this year. But I think they're still a top 5, top 6 team in the country. Now, the game I want to talk about here is Mississippi State. My guy, Will Rogers, throwing for 370 yards and 3 TDs. Put him on the Heisman watch list. Him and Alan Bowman are going to be battling out at the end of the year.
Yeah, this Georgia game, I said last podcast, Georgia's the best team in the country. I'm going to stick by it, even with how well Alabama played. This defense is just absurd. Clemson offense supposed to be one of the best in the country. Just did absolutely nothing. Couldn't run the ball. Definitely couldn't throw the ball. So the Georgia defense was really impressive to me. I thought JT Daniels was fine. He wasn't great. He did enough to win the game. But as you guys were saying, Clemson's going to take a step back this year, and I think they're going to continue to take steps back. This is I believe, that loss to Ohio State last year was the beginning of the end for Clemson's run. They're not a perennial like powerhouse school. They're not Alabama. They're not Ohio State. I think this is the beginning of the end. They're getting pushed around in the trenches, and I think it's starting to come to an end.
I hate to be that guy, but Clemson's not recruiting good enough.
Yeah,
to win at this
they're
level.
not.
They're not.
And they're going to
They're-
keep it's going to keep going down. This is it right here. Last year was our last chance. This is the beginning of the end.
No, the great equalizer in college football is a great quarterback. When Clemson had a great quarterback, they won. And when they don't have a great quarterback, they don't win. And
That's
past
true.
couple of years, they had a great quarterback. But I can argue that Deshaun Watson was better than Trevor Lawrence, even in college. Trevor Lawrence won a national championship too. But here's the problem: Clemson, they have a bunch of issues. Number one, they got the receivers they have. They don't have any speed guys. All their receivers are big possession receivers. They can't go run by guys. That's a problem. You got to recruit some of those guys. Alabama gets those every year. They got one in the transfer portal, Jameson Williams, Ohio State guy. He runs by people. Ohio State's got a whole stable of those guys. Clemson doesn't have them. They don't have they don't have the guys.
Were you watching the Alabama game? Maybe it was the radio broadcast, but I saw a clip after where the Alabama commentators they saw him and they're like, "Oh my God, Ohio State must have a great wide receiver room if they can let this guy go." I couldn't stop laughing. It's because no shit, we've gotten 3 or 4 5-star wide receivers in the past 2 years. Plus, you add Olave and freaking what's his face. I mean, it was just a funny when people talk about Ohio State, they talk about the wide receivers the past couple of years, and these guys were just they must have a great wide receiver room if they let this guy go.
Well, you also have to understand that they've never watched Big Ten football in their life, so they only care about the SEC. They only watch Alabama, Auburn, because that's real football. No one else plays football, as far as they're concerned. But anyway, other problem is the reason why Georgia's gotten the number one class isn't for their skill position players, because they just bulk up in the trenches, and that's not something Clemson's done good enough. Defensively, they've done well in the trenches. They played great defensively up front. The problem is offensive line. It was a problem last year. The reason why Clemson got blown out against Ohio State was one of the reasons was because their offensive line couldn't hold up. And that's a problem. It's something they need to alleviate somehow. They need to get better recruiting classes from the offensive line. And Georgia, the talent flashed. They're the most talented team in college football. The problem that might be a problem is quarterback play. I like JT Daniels. I think he's a very good quarterback, but he's not a great quarterback. And Alabama's got a great quarterback, and some of the other teams that are at their level have great quarterbacks. Oklahoma, you think, has a great quarterback. Talent-wise, he does. He is a great quarterback.
Doesn't. Ohio State probably doesn't. Who else is there? Notre Dame or Texas A&M probably doesn't.
BC does.
BC does. That is true. They might play BC in the playoffs, so that's something to watch for.
Right. So
how about BC covering by half a point? They're 15.5 point favorites.
Okay, so good win for Georgia. It's hard to say they're a lock, but if you look at their schedule, they got a tough UAB team today or tomorrow.
All right, let's not estimate Georgia's ability to lose big games here.
Yeah, well, they don't play any big games.
They don't have any big games.
That's the problem. They don't have any other big games.
Aside from Florida, Florida sucks.
Florida's
if they lose the SEC championship, they're out. Which are they going to lose?
They're going to hold on a second. They're going to go undefeated in SEC play, and they're going to be left out of the playoff.
Well, no, they'll probably be like a couple years ago. Well, they'll make it in, and then they'll lose that game too. They'll lose the semifinal. They always lose. No one loses like Georgia.
They're going to make it in, unless they could lose at Auburn. They do play at Auburn next month.
The way Auburn's offense is, you think they're going to beat Georgia? Are you kidding me?
That's a tough place to play.
The talent gap between Auburn and Georgia is bigger than the talent gap between Ohio State and Michigan. It's a bigger gap.
the atmosphere of the stadium.
Doesn't
Oh my
matter.
God, they do have a horrible schedule. This
Yeah,
might be
I
this
mean,
might
Florida,
be easier
if
than
Florida can
Clemson.
get that, if Florida can get that Jefferson kid on the field and get this bum who can't throw off the field, maybe they'll give him some issues. But right now, I don't see any team beating them on their schedule. And then even if they make the SEC championship game, it could be one of those things where Nick Saban lets them win. Just, give them a feeling of, oh, we beat Alabama, so that when
Or-
Alabama plays them in the playoff, they win.
They're both going to be. They both may be 12-0 at that point. It probably won't matter. They'll
Well,
both-
we'll see. We'll see if Texas A&M can get Alabama. That game.
Oh, what about Mississippi State?
I'm so done with Texas A&M. A quick. I know we're not on here, but the quarterback sucks. He's awful. He was
one game.
He sucks. He's awful. I know he's supposed to be this great quarterback, but he's awful. They're going to miss Kellen Mond. If they had Kellen Mond, they'd have a chance, but they don't.
If they had Kellen Moore, they'd have a chance.
It's true.
All right. Where are we? Okay, we got some big previews. Two really big games that we're going to preview. First is Oregon goes on the road to face Ohio State. 9 a.m. local kickoff for the Ducks. Big noon kickoff. Let's preview this game. What are your feelings about this one?
Well, I mean, the shoe's going to be jumping. First game back, full crowd. Well, it might not be a full crowd. It might almost full crowd. Place is going to be jumping. I think. I mean, once again, at least it's at home for CJ Stroud, but it's another. I mean, yeah, it was a good experience going against a hostile environment in Minnesota. Now you're coming at home, but now you're playing a really good Oregon team. But I think at home it'll sell the nerves. Good second half last week, and he has the wide receivers around him, running backs. He has other guys to lean on. I think he'll ease into this game, and I think Ohio State. It's going to be very similar, I think, to the Minnesota game where Ohio State's it's a close game first half, and Ohio State breaks away in the third and fourth quarter.
Oregon is wildly overrated. They were terrible last week. In my opinion, they're the fifth best team in the Pac-12. I can't believe they're ranked number 12. Anthony Brown is their quarterback. Let's start there. And frankly, they have a problem at head coach. I know he's a pretty good recruiter, but he can't coach. Ohio State is going to win this game probably by over 30 points. They are so much better than Oregon in pretty much every facet of the game. So if Ohio State doesn't win by 30 plus, I'm going to be concerned.
I feel like this game's going to go one of two ways. Which one of two ways, either Oregon wins or Ohio State wins. No, that's not what I mean. I mean, Ohio State's either going to blow the doors off of Oregon, or Oregon's going to win outright in a close game. The reason why I think that is, this kind of gives me the feeling of that Ohio State-Oklahoma game at the Shoe a few years ago, one of the biggest games of the year. Oklahoma comes in, they punk the Buckeyes, they win by 10 points. Probably that's
Oklahoma was ranked like 5 in the country, and we were like 2 in the country.
You gotta be kidding me, Mike. This Oregon team sucks. There's a big difference between those two.
No, they don't.
They're awful. This Oregon team sucks. They're terrible.
I'd argue that this Oregon team has more talent than that Oklahoma team. They do. Maybe not offensively, but in terms of a entire package, Oregon's been recruiting better than Oklahoma recruited. They have that.
Let's go look at this. Man, this talent looked great against Fresno State this week. They win by 7 points, and they were losing going into the fourth quarter to Fresno State.
That's the same Oklahoma team that lost to Houston, was it not? Maybe that was another thing. But I don't know. It might have been. Here's the point. The point is, Ohio State has sleptwalked through these games before. It's happened before. I know it's Ryan Day, not Urban Meyer, but they're either going to be 100% ready to go, and Oregon's going to suck, and they're going to blow them out, or Oregon's going to surprise some people, because Oregon is probably, maybe Penn State, but Oregon's probably the most talented team that Ohio State's going to play this year in the regular season. So you can't just come out and hope to just give it a C effort and hope to win.
They give it a C effort, they will win by 20 instead of 30.
No. They won't because I don't know. I still have questions about CJ Stroud. I do.
Doesn't
I
matter.
don't think. I think Anthony Brown's a competent quarterback. He can win you some games. He can have a great game. He's able to run. He can throw a little bit, and they got some running backs. But I think Ohio State. I'm leaning more towards Ohio State blowout.
Oh, are you leaning towards Ohio State in this one?
I am. I am leaning towards the team that's favored by 2 touchdowns. Yes.
Yeah, interesting.
Okay, and probably the biggest game of the week, and definitely the biggest matchup in Iowa State's history. We got Iowa at Iowa State, 4:30. Reese Davis, Kirk Herbstreit. They basically said "F you" to Michigan, Washington, and they're going to Ames. Biggest game in Iowa State school history. Here we go.
That was a tough decision to not go to the Michigan Washington game.
Well, who decided to put that on Sunday Night Football? Saturday Night Football.
That's a good question.
It'll get more ratings than the Iowa State game. That's for sure.
Probably.
All right, so preview this game.
I mean, this is one of the games where you throw everything out the window. I mean, Iowa State struggled a little bit last week. It doesn't matter. Iowa looked great last week. Doesn't matter. I think Iowa State, my heart tells me Iowa State. You guys know I love Iowa State. I love Matt Campbell. My heart's telling me Iowa State. My brain's telling me Iowa because I think Iowa's the better team. But it's one of those things. It's a rivalry game. And who knows what can happen, especially in a rivalry like this. I mean, the Cy Hawk Trophy, it's one of the greatest trophies in sport. I just think Iowa's going to win the game. I mean, Matt Campbell's kind of like, what's his face? Mike Leach when he was at Washington State. He wins all these games, but he can never beat his rival. And I just think that's going to happen. But it's going to be a bloodbath, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I'll be disappointed if either team gets to 20 in this game. I'm really excited for this. 2 very good teams. Iowa, very good quarterback at Iowa. That's my guy, Spencer Petras.
He sucked last week.
Played great last week.
He sucked.
But here's the thing. And I like Iowa a lot. This is nothing against Iowa, but I think Iowa State returns so much from last year. They probably have the coaching advantage despite my love for Kirk Ferentz. And they're at home. I know they didn't look good last week, but this happens every year. They'll play another team from the state of Iowa and either lose or barely win. And they're going to play this game at home. They're going to be fired up. They'll be ready to go. And I think they're slightly better just because of everything they return. So I'm leaning towards Iowa State here.
Here's the thing, though. Iowa State, every single game Iowa State plays is close every single year.
I think
under Matt Campbell. It's the way they play the trestle ball. They play trestle ball. Everything's close.
I think it comes down to Spencer Petras. Brock Purdy's going to play well. We know that. He's a very good quarterback. But Spencer Petras has been a little bit of a wild card last year and in that first game this year.
He shouldn't be he's not a Big Ten quarterback.
If he plays well, Iowa's got a really good chance to win. So I think he's a big X factor here.
This is one of those games where you look. Iowa State has struggled against Iowa. Iowa's got the advantage in terms of head-to-head over the past couple of years, and I just can't help but think mental fatigue, mental issue.
Well, they didn't play last year.
Yeah, I know they didn't play last year, but Iowa beats them every year when they do play. And
last year was the first year that they were actually probably on the same level as Iowa.
Iowa State was better last year.
Well, no, yes, but I'm saying like the year before that, Iowa I think was still better.
The year before that, Iowa State should have won, but they
Iowa State was building up to it. Last year seemed like a year that they were going to win.
Iowa to win that game.
Yeah, I can't discount that. I've seen it before with rivalries. Oklahoma State, mental block with Oklahoma. They can't beat Oklahoma. They can't do it. And yes, Oklahoma most of the time is more talent, but when it's equal, Oklahoma State just doesn't show up when they play. I've seen it with Deering Portland in basketball. 100% it's a thing. And there's no pressure on Iowa. because if you lose the game, you're on the road. Okay, you beat them every year. It's okay if you lose one of these games to probably the greatest Iowa State team of all time. The pressure is on Iowa State, 100%, 100%. If they're going to ever beat Iowa, this is the year, which is a stupid saying because you could beat them any year. But if it was ever the year, it would be this year. So I'm leaning Iowa just because of the whole mental side of this. I think Iowa State is going to be feeling the pressure.
I don't think there's a mental side to it. I mean, Iowa State's was building up to it. They're slowly getting better. Slowly, the games were closer and closer. Last year was the game they were going to get over the hump. COVID hit. They didn't play. I think this is the year they do it.
You might be right. But I think this Iowa team is very good, and who knows? They might be more talented than Iowa State in terms. I think Iowa's defense is great. Iowa State's defense is great. It's going to be a great game, but it's going to come down. Usually, in a toss-up game, usually I'll take the better quarterback, which is obviously Iowa State. But this is a different circumstance. I don't know. I don't know if they have it. I don't know if they got it mentally. A lot of pressure on. Iowa's playing with house money on the road. There's going to be plenty of Hawkeye fans there. There's going to be more Iowa State fans, but there's going to be plenty of Hawkeye fans there. It's going to be a great game. College game days there. A lot of pressure on Iowa State. The game day factor, people don't take that into account either. That's a big pressure thing too, especially for programs that don't usually host game day. That can be a lot of pressure on teams. So
I don't buy this at all. This isn't like Michigan, Ohio State, where Michigan is expected by their fans and by the boosters to be on the same level as Ohio State. Iowa State is a nothing program. This is like Vanderbilt. Oh, Vanderbilt has a mental block with Tennessee. That's why I don't think they're going to be able to beat them.
Oh crap!
It's the same thing.
Iowa State, though, they've raised their bar. They've raised their level. Iowa State has to Iowa's level.
They're playing with house money. Iowa State is playing with house money. If they make a bowl game, it's a great year to be an Iowa State Cyclone fan. They are ranked number 9 in the country right now.
I'm talking about the players. You're telling me
they are playing with house
money.
money.
The players will be okay with a bowl game this year if you're Iowa State.
What player is going to be okay? Is Iowa going to be okay with that? They're ranked in the top 10 now. They were ranked number 18 last week. Now the pressure's on them. They moved up into the top 10.
You just said Iowa State would be fine with a bowl game.
Their fans would be.
It's about the players. It's not about the fans.
They're not feeling any pressure from the media or anything. It's not like you got this. It's not like
I don't buy the whole media thing. No one looks at the freaking media. Give me a break. It's about
please.
It's about
You're not getting any pressure from fans. You're getting no pressure from media.
Michigan is no pressure because the media kisses their ass every year.
They're playing with house money. They're playing with house money. There's no pressure on them. They're playing with house money. Iowa is a proud program.
Pressure on them when they play Ohio State. That's not true because the fans kiss their ass. The media kisses their ass. Give me a break.
Well, I could come up with a better example. But the point is, Iowa State's a nothing program. They're playing with house money.
You don't think Brock Purdy has pressure on him to beat Iowa? He's one of the best quarterbacks in their school history, and he's never beaten Iowa.
He's already the best quarterback in Iowa State history. What more does he have to prove?
Beat Iowa? That's the one thing he doesn't have.
He has nothing left to prove. He is playing with house money, as is everybody on the team, as is Matt Campbell. Iowa State has no pressure on them. Iowa is a proud program.
What are you talking about?
Iowa is supposed to beat Iowa State every year.
Iowa State's favored. Of course, they're the more pressure on Iowa State. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
There's every time Tennessee plays Vanderbilt, there's more pressure on Tennessee.
When is Vanderbilt ranked in the top 10?
They could be.
What are you talking about?
This is the equivalent right here.
Mike, 5 years ago, you would have said the same thing about Iowa State.
Yeah, exactly. There is no pressure on Iowa State here.
But Vanderbilt's never been ranked in the top 10.
Maybe 5 years
from now they will be.
Maybe 5 years from now they will be.
And that's like saying, Michigan State should never.
Let me tell you about
should never expect to beat Michigan.
Vanderbilt has so much pressure on them here to beat Tennessee today. No.
You think there's more pressure on Iowa? Is that what you're telling me?
Iowa is supposed to beat Iowa State every year. They're supposed to beat them every year. There's no.
No, they're not.
Yes, they are.
Go look at the early 2000s. Iowa State and Iowa went back and forth every year.
That's
Every year.
unacceptable. That's unacceptable for Iowa. Iowa is a proud program that's supposed to beat Iowa State every year. They have the more pressure on them.
Right. That's just the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Because we've seen this 100 times. That's like saying, oh, South Carolina should beat Clemson every year because they were the better program for the last 30 years. So the pressure's on South Carolina. That's what you're saying, basically.
That's like
I mean, I don't care what happened
basketball.
30 years
If
ago.
you-
I don't care.
You
It's
came
this
up to
year.
me. Here comes North Carolina and NC State. They're both ranked in the top 10. Let me tell you, NC State has a tremendous amount of pressure on them tonight. They have to beat number 8 North Carolina. Like,
NC State beats North Carolina every year. So
they're playing with house money. North Carolina is
No, they're
supposed to win
not.
the game every year. NC State in basketball or Iowa State here, they are not
Chris,
supposed to win this game.
Chris,
They're playing with house money.
if it was a top 10 matchup between Michigan and Michigan State, the pressure would be 20 times more in Michigan State.
No,
20
pressure
times
would
more.
be on Michigan.
30 times
There would
more.
be no
30
pressure on
times
Michigan
more.
State. Zero pressure on
No.
Michigan State.
That's
There
a
would
bad comparison.
100% be 20 times more pressure.
That's a
Because
bad
Michigan
comparison.
State
That's a
puts
bad comparison.
everything into that game. Iowa State puts everything into that game. That's a huge game.
That's a horrible
Huge.
comparison.
It's not a horrible comparison.
Yeah, it is because they're not the same level. Michigan and Michigan State in
Michigan
basketball.
State's not on the same level as Michigan.
No, what I'm saying is Michigan State and Michigan in basketball expect to be competing for Big
Talking about
Ten
football.
and
I'm talking
national
about football.
championships every year.
Talking about football.
And
I'm talking about
in
football. We're not on the same level as Michigan in football. If it was a top 10 matchup,
What are you talking about?
we would have
Let me-
way
Mike,
more pressure on us.
Mike, let me
Mike,
tell you
you
about
bring
this
up
game here.
Mike. You bring up
Notre
all the
Dame-
time how Michigan State has won more national championships than Michigan since the war, and because you try to say how great of a Michigan State program there is. So give me a break. Give me a break.
Oh,
Let me
yeah.
tell you about this right here. Notre Dame and Indiana are going to play next week. Indiana, tremendous amount of pressure on Indiana. It doesn't even make any sense.
They're not rivals. So
The team
that's
that
not
never
applicable.
wins, the team that never wins has no pressure if you are
Yes,
supposed
you do. Are you
If you are-
serious?
if you
You're
are
telling me
supposed
Oklahoma State has no pressure on them to
that's
beat
different.
Oklahoma every year.
That's different.
They have a ton of pressure, and that's why they lose. It's
Different.
as simple as that.
No, they don't
Mike
have a
Gundy
ton of
can't
pressure.
Back
beat 'em.
comparison.
There's a
Back
reason why
comparison.
Mike Gundy still Mike. There's a reason why Mike Gundy still has his
That's
job.
also
It's because
true.
that game doesn't matter.
He has a job because he beats everybody else except for Oklahoma.
Iowa
Exactly.
State
So it
is
doesn't matter.
Iowa State is the
Please,
equivalent.
give me a
Mike,
break.
Mike, Iowa
Give me a
State
break.
is the equivalent of Tennessee and Vanderbilt.
No,
It's the same
it's
thing.
not.
It is the
It's
equivalent.
not even close.
Yes, it is. It's the equivalent. Iowa State has
It's
no
the equivalent
pressure.
of Michigan State. That's what it's equivalent of.
No, it's not.
Because
Give me-
Iowa,
that's awful.
Iowa
State
is to
a-
Michigan what Iowa State is to Michigan State. It is.
Iowa State is a historically bad program, as is Vanderbilt. Tennessee
Is
and
Michigan
Iowa
State a
are
historically
proud
great program?
Yeah, Michigan State is a proud program.
No, come on.
Probably more like
We've
USC
been good a
and
couple
UCLA, to be
times.
honest with you.
We were good with D'Antonio, and we were good
Michigan
with what's
State is
his
a
name?
top 25 football program of all time. Iowa State is not a top 100 football program of all time. They have
Okay.
no.
They're top
business.
50.
They should not have any pressure on them this weekend.
You're going back to the past. The past doesn't matter. It's about this year. It's about this year.
That's
Yes,
not true.
I agree with you.
It's
In a normal year where Iowa State sucks, there'd be no pressure on them.
You know what this is?
There's
This is like
100% pressure on
this
them
is like
this year.
saying-
100%.
in an Illy-Buck game that Illinois has a ton of pressure
They're
on. them.
not rivals.
Yes,
That's
they
not
are.
even
Illy-Buck.
What? Mike, that's the most important rivalry Ohio State plays every year. Well, we don't play it every year. That's why it's so
Yeah,
important.
exactly. That's why it's not a rivalry.
It's
Okay.
Illy-Buck.
And if Illinois is ranked ahead of Ohio State, you're telling me there'd be no pressure in
There'd
Illinois.
be no pressure on Illinois. Nope. It would be all on Ohio State.
You're right, because Illinois doesn't have fans. Iowa State has got some of the most passionate fans in college football.
Iowa
Now,
State's not a
it's a
fan.
small fan base,
Iowa has
but it's
fans,
very passionate.
and Iowa has fans, and they'll be pissed if they lose this game this weekend.
I'm telling you right now, Iowa fans, if there's any time to lose to Iowa State, this would be the year. Yeah, 100%.
It's
There's
still
no
unacceptable.
pressure on Iowa at all.
I can imagine a lot of Tennessee fans are saying there's 1 year to lose to Vanderbilt. Let me tell you, it's this year, it's this next year here.
When is Vanderbilt ever ranked in the top 10?
This is what you would have been saying about
understand your
You would
point.
have been saying the same
Makes
thing
no
5
sense.
years ago about Iowa State. Vanderbilt could be in the top 10 in 5 years. You don't know.
Your point literally makes no sense.
Your
If
point makes no
Michigan-
sense.
When Michigan went on the road to Ann Arbor in 2015, we ranked number 7. It was Michigan ranked 12th. There was so much pressure on Michigan State. 100 times more pressure on Michigan State in that game.
The one
And we
in
almost
Ann Arbor,
lost, but we won.
The one he dropped the punt.
Yes, the one he dropped the punt.
There
We were
was no
100.
pressure on Michigan State. What are you talking about?
There was 30 times more pressure in
And
Michigan
that's
State.
still a
than
bad
Michigan.
comparison.
20 times
Michigan
more
State's
pressure.
Michigan State's a proud program. Iowa State is a terrible program. So there
You're
you go.
telling me they're not a proud program right now?
Iowa
way
State
they're
is not
playing?
a proud
They
program.
just won the Fiesta Bowl.
I don't care. They're
What
not
are
a
you
proud.
talking about?
When Matt Campbell leaves, they are never getting back. This is the greatest team they're ever going to have. There's no chance of them ever getting back to this point.
Exactly. So if they're not going to beat Iowa this year, when are they going to beat Iowa?
Mike,
When?
they are never. Iowa is supposed to win every year. There's no pressure on Iowa State.
They're not supposed to win this year because Iowa State's favored. So the pressure's on Iowa State.
Still, you're the better program. You're supposed to win. In the eyes of the Iowa players, it's like, okay, here we go. We're going to play little brother here. We need to win this game.
Well,
Yeah,
Iowa's
no
not even-
crap. You want to win the game? No, duh. Of course
Iowa's
you
not
want to
even
win
a-
the game.
Iowa's not even Iowa State's biggest rival. Let's be honest.
Yeah, Farmageddon. Kansas State.
Farmageddon.
No, that's the one rivalry Iowa State can win.
Yeah, they have a winning.
100% more pressure in Iowa State. I'm not even entertaining this anymore.
Your point just doesn't make sense. I don't want to.
Your point makes no sense. What are you talking about?
We can argue about this later, but we might as well keep going. But yet, I'm refusing to concede anything to you in this.
It's just whatever. Okay, picks. We'll move on to the picks. We'll start tomorrow, 11 a.m. Illinois at Virginia.
Virginia. They're what? 10 to
10 and a
13 point
half,
favorites
I
or something like that.
Virginia.
Yeah,
10 and a half.
I've got Virginia, but Illinois covers the 10 and a half. Okay, Youngstown State at Michigan State.
Michigan State. I hope.
Michigan State.
Michigan State in a close one. Okay, Oregon at Ohio State.
Ohio State.
Ohio State.
Ohio State. South Carolina at East Carolina.
The fact that South Carolina is only 2-point favorites is embarrassing.
Well, Luke, I got East Carolina -1, or I got South Carolina +1 in one of my bets. So the line has moved towards South Carolina.
I'll take East Carolina. Why not?
South Carolina. Their assistant coach looked good last week at quarterback.
I forgot about that.
Speaking of a guy
last week.
used to play for Iowa State, he was one of the guys that couldn't beat Iowa. Zeb Noland. Give me South Carolina. Pittsburgh at Tennessee. Interesting game here.
Oh God. What time's the? Oh, here it is.
Noon.
Oh, it's a pick'em game. Pittsburgh 3-point. I'll take Pittsburgh. Your guy up there, Mike.
I'll go Tennessee because they're at home.
Pittsburgh's the better football team. Give me Pittsburgh. Okay. Rutgers at Syracuse.
Jesus Christ, what a game. I'll take Rutgers.
Rutgers.
Well, Syracuse, that was a good win last week at Ohio, a game where a lot of people thought they'd lose. They won pretty easily. Give me Syracuse. I've changed my opinion on this game. All right, Texas A&M at Colorado.
I'll take A&M.
I'm going to take A&M, but I'll tell you what. Look out! This could be an upset here.
Only Colorado had fans.
A&M.
And it'd be a tough place if they had fans.
A&M looked awful last week. Haynes King sucks. I'm completely off of them, but they're still better than Colorado. But look out for this game. It's going to be close. I'll take A&M though.
A&M, not even close. Colorado's the worst team in the Pac-12.
Well, they've been building up. They've been building up ever since.
They've not been building up anything. They've been
in shambles.
All right, Cal at TCU.
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 TCU is one of the most underrated teams in the country in terms of talent. I don't know if Gary Patterson is done coaching, but I think they should win that game pretty easily. Okay, Air Force at Navy, 3:30 CBS. Gary Danielson and what's his name? Brad Nessler on the game. Who we got here?
Navy looked really bad
Yeah,
last week. I'm
Luke
gonna
Ken's
take it.
on the hot seat.
He's not on the hot seat. He's there as long as he wants the job.
He
I'll
should be
take
on the
Air
hot
Force.
seat.
I'll take Air Force.
Air Force.
Air Force. All right, Iowa at Iowa State.
Iowa State.
Iowa State.
Iowa. All right, interesting game here. Appalachian State goes to Miami.
This is one of those things with Miami sucks. They're so bad. They're horribly coached, and Appalachian State's historically good. They've really the last decade or so, but I just think Miami gets it done.
Miami's going to win this game and blow up.
I think Miami's in wounded animal mode. Coming off of the loss against Alabama, they know that they're probably going to lose next week against Michigan State. This is a game they have to win.
Yeah, they're
Or
going to
got
lose to
Miami.
Michigan State next week. Yeah.
Michigan State's a better team.
Yeah.
Okay, Texas at Arkansas.
It's a big rivalry game.
Yeah, this is the real Red River rivalry here.
I'll take Texas.
Texas, close. Very close.
Yeah, I love the way Texas played last week against a good Louisiana team. Arkansas, I think Arkansas is a good team, but I think Texas will squeak it out. All right, NC State at Mississippi State.
Mississippi State, my guy Will Rogers.
NC State. Mississippi State looked awful last week.
What? Will Rogers threw for 370 yards and 3 TDs. Greatest comeback in school
I
history.
didn't say Will Rogers. I didn't say Will Rogers looked bad, but they looked bad. They almost lost.
Yeah, well, that's because Will Rogers led him on the greatest comeback in school history.
Yeah.
This is a toss-up game for me because NC State was very good last year. Their schedule is very tough. They've got a brutal schedule. And this is one of, I don't want to say it's one of their easier games, but Mississippi State on the road. Mississippi State's not great, but I think Mike Leach has got them rolling. I'm taking Mississippi State here. All right, we got a big rivalry game here. New Mexico State at New Mexico.
Which one's the really bad one?
New Mexico State.
I don't believe you.
All right.
Because one of them's like historically bad, and the other one's. I'll go.
Yeah,
with
one's historically bad. The other's just bad.
bad. I'm trying to find what's the spread on this game. I'm trying to find it. Can't find it, Mike.
New Mexico minus 19. I'm going to take New Mexico. Just what
Okay, I'll take New Mexico then.
Yeah, New Mexico, but New Mexico State, maybe. You never know.
Oh, here it is. New Mexico's 21-point favorites. Jesus.
Yeah, that's a tough game for New Mexico State. All right, this is an interesting SEC matchup. Missouri on the road at Kentucky.
Kentucky's coming off a down year. I think they had that one historically good year. But Missouri's also sucks. I'll take Kentucky.
I like Kentucky. They have a quarterback this year. How about that?
Well, last year they literally had a running back, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kentucky, they've been recruiting well, and they're a good team. I'll take Kentucky. All right, Washington at Michigan.
Michigan.
I like Michigan. It's going to be very low scoring, but there's no excuse to lose this game after what happened last week with Washington.
Well, this is a nightmare scenario for the University of Michigan because now if you win the game, it's one of those things where, you should have won. That team just lost to an FCS school. But if you lose the game, my God, now all hell breaks loose. And now Washington is going to make this their Super Bowl after being embarrassed last week. This is going to be a tough game. If Washington beat Montana by 20 last week, I think Michigan would win easily. I think they're a better team. I think it's going to be close. I got Michigan by a field goal, 17-14. And then they're not even going to be able to pimp the win because it's not a good win now. Anyway, okay. Vanderbilt at Colorado State. Very interesting game here.
Jesus Christ. I mean, Colorado State looked horrible last week. Absolutely horrible. I'm going to go with
Vandy lost to East Tennessee 23-3.
Jesus Christ. Can I take a tie? Like, I guess I'll take Colorado State.
I'm going to take Colorado State, but I will tell you this. On November 27th, there is a ton of pressure on Vanderbilt to beat Tennessee.
Well, the thing is, Chris, at least Vanderbilt's been able to beat Tennessee the past 10 years. Iowa State has not been able to beat Iowa.
All right, so it's not even on that level. How about
Chris?
it's
It's
like-
like Oklahoma State. It's
no?
the same
It's
sort
like
of thing.
it's like this week Florida's playing USF. It's like there's oh my god, there's so much pressure on USF this week.
I don't think USF's ever played Florida before, so that's a horrible comparison. But I got Vanderbilt. I'm not confident in that pick at all. San Diego State at Arizona. Both teams looked horrible last week.
I'll take San Diego State.
San Diego State, Arizona's going 0-12.
I took Arizona last week against BYU, and they almost did their thing. I got Arizona. Listen, I can't pick against Don Brown. I can't do it. Give me Arizona. Oh, and did you see that JT Daniels is out for the game against UAB tomorrow? It's going to be a tough
It's
game.
an upset watch.
I saw it was questionable.
All right, last game, Utah at BYU, the Jihad. What do you got?
I'll tell you what, though, the worst thing that's ever happened to this rivalry is Utah going to the Pac-12 because they've kind of just surpassed them. Hopefully, BYU going to the Big 12 now. I mean, I'm surprised we didn't talk about that. BYU going to the Big 12 now should hopefully even it out because it's no fun when one team dominates a rivalry unless it's the team you root for. But I'll go with Utah.
This is another great example of how BYU. There's way more pressure on BYU to win this game.
Why?
Because BYU never beat a Utah. Never beat Utah.
BYU is a proud program. Iowa State's not.
That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
How's
What
that
I'm
dumb?
taking Utah.
What does a proud program have to do with that at all? Do the players, when you go, do you think the players at Iowa State like, oh, there's no pressure on us. We don't even have to go out and perform.
I'm sure that's what Matt Campbell's saying. I'm saying we're playing with house money here. This is the greatest team in school.
They're not playing with house money. They're the favorites. You can't pull the house money card when you're the favorite.
Yes, you can.
No, you can't.
You absolutely can.
No, you can't. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
No, there's a lot, Mike. There's a lot more pressure on Utah because if Utah loses, they don't get to go back home and get drunk and bang chicks. But if they win, they do. If BYU wins, they don't get to do that either way. So it's more pressure on Utah to win.
Okay, that's
it's more pressure on Utah.
Here. That's my pick.
Who'd you take?
Utah.
You both take Utah?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to take Utah. But listen, here's the point. This is a better example. 2014, Michigan at Michigan State. Michigan State's ranked in the top 10. Michigan's, what are they? They're like 4-3, 3-4. Who's the pressure on in that game? Is it on Michigan?
I'll preface this by saying that's a bad comparison again because Michigan State's a proud program.
No, I'm just asking you.
There's more pressure on Michigan.
There's more pressure on Michigan.
Yep.
So if Michigan's all right. That's gonna do it for the podcast. This is a complete joke. Nobody knows that you don't know what you're talking about. Iowa State is gonna lose because there's too much pressure on Saturday. Okay, we will see you next week for another episode.